We now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Rev Nathaniel W Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
Thank you, Brother Blackwell, and hi to all of my friends and viewers and listeners, and my lovers and my haters, and those who lift me up and those who push me down. Thank God for all of you. My name is Rev Nathaniel W Martin, and the name of our offering is entitled It's Time. And well, you may ask, what is it time for? It is time for justice, social justice. We must have social activism, social agitation. We must therefore be socially aware of why we need to be agitating and what we are agitating about. We need to have social justice when it relates to our health care, because our health care outcomes, even for black women who are pregnant, their health care outcome of delivering a healthy child or a full-term child is very far behind that of the white people who tend to get better health care prenatal and postnatal. We need social activism to push for better housing, which is a disgrace, which is a scandal that goes all the way back to the founding of the country. They didn't want you to have nowhere to live, and that affects your education, because if you have better housing over here, but you over there, and so this kid over here is getting a good education, you over here in a substandard school, then of course there is an inequity in the education. And that means that the suffrage has to be better attended to, better guarded. We got to get away from this scandal of voter suppression that is taken off ever since the Shelby v. Holder case was lost in the Supreme Court. We need, and that, of course, voting and your economics. I guess they should be way back up at the top, because your economics, in my view, must involve reparations for past crimes, past inequities, past injustices heaped upon primarily the black people of the United States of America. Because the black people were forced over here from their country of Africa. We did not immigrate, we were forced. We did not want to get on no ship. We never came past Ellis Island, and we, as Malcolm X said, we did not land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, and then we need not only economic justice, but we got to also have environmental justice. For too many years, our black people have been down in the pit, in the toxic waste dumps. Their communities have been boxed in by factories that emitted fumes or gave off nauseous gases, or not just merely polluting the water, as in the case of Flint, Michigan, but polluting the air, as in the case of many of our black so-called communities or enclaves. And so for all of those reasons, we need to talk about reparations. We need to demand reparations and set up a mechanism by which I'll stick with mechanism for which the distribution of those reparations can occur. First, we must get the nation to acknowledge that there is a need and a right for reparations to the black people who are the descendants in this country of the slaves. Jamaica ain't got no business in our conversation, or Haiti. I said the United States of America, because of the fact that we endured and we suffered and still suffer the vestiges of that legacy of slavery right down to the present hour. Scripture tells us, if thy brother, and by inference thy sister, an Hebrew man or an Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, In the 7th year thou shalt let them go free from thee. And, verse number 13, when thou sendest them out free from thee, thou shalt not let them go away empty. They came there empty-handed, busted, had to run like everything to keep from being sold. If they were going to sell the place for a quarter, you don't let them leave that way. They have served thee. The Bible says they have been worth 2 servants of thee, because they have served thee for what? For nothing. Now, when it come time to release them, the year of release was 6 years. 7th year was the year of Jubilee in the old Hebrew economy. And down there in the Bible Belt and all over Maryland and Virginia and Kentucky and Missouri, which were all included in those slave states, they claim to uphold and live by the Bible. But when you look at their practices and their policies and their laws and their codes and their statutes and their ordinances, you find the contrary obtained. So then, slavery in the Bible, 6 years, 7th year, you get your liberty. And the people that you had served and worked for were not to just push you out the gate. They were to give you in that day what it took for you to survive, not just survive, but to thrive and get on about your business. That means whatever they had, whatever you have been working with, sheep, and not the worst sheep, not the broke down cow, not the busted and about to die horse or camel in those days. They were to make you whole, so that when you left there, that was a reparation. You left there, that was a reparation. Reparation is to make amends for damages done. And that's what God required then. And God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so he must be the same right now. Amen, lights and walls. And so as we look at our present society, United States of America, whether you look at it from the eyes of the spiritual advisor, theologian, myself, oh God, or you look at it from the eyes of the sociologist, or the psychologist, or the philosopher, then, or the economist especially, then you see how far America has strayed from that biblical standard, that biblical mandate. And so as we continue our reparations broadcast, I'm going to be bringing in some people from Asia to give us some updates and insights and help us as a people collectively to increase our knowledge base, because we need more knowledge about reparations. I'm going to work something out with them so they can start coming and help with the broadcast. They meet every third Saturday, I believe. I'm going to be sure I'll be there. And we're going to push this thing, because it's going to be a mighty hard fight. I mentioned last week about partisan gerrymandering is the new device that is being used to avoid reparations, or to avoid not so much equality of suffrage, because you're never going to have equality of suffrage, but you can sure have better voter representation than has been historically practiced in the United States of America. Remember that historically, the black man, woman, was not even allowed to vote. The only comparison was with the white woman, and she got the vote in 1920, and all black people did not get the vote until provisionally in 1965. I say provisionally because every 10 years or so, the Voting Rights Act has to be renewed. And since the Roberts Court has gutted and eviscerated the Voting Rights Act as it was passed in 1965, now there's going to be a greater and a tougher battle and more uncertainty as to black people continually to maintain the right to vote. Must remember that you have a very reactionary U.S. Supreme Court. This Supreme Court, which began to be put together by Rehnquist under the Nixon, Chief Justice Rehnquist, Scalia, and other crowd, yes, Clarence Thomas, their view is that there is no universal absolute right of suffrage. And so that means that you really don't have a right to suffrage. Remember, for years, the founding of the country, 13 colonies, not all white men had the right to vote, but all, got to turn off our air conditioner. That's making too much noise. Let me get a little bit closer. In the 13 colonies originally, the right to vote was limited to what they call landed white men, which means the poor white trash who didn't have no land had no right to vote. And that held sway for until, I think it was Shays' Rebellion, and when the landed white gentry said, now we can't have another rebellion like this over money. We got to let these other white folks that we consider white trash, let them know that they are part of us too, so they help us hold down the black slave insurrections and the slavery uprising. Remember, slavery insurrections were common in the 13 colonies. That's why in the Constitution it said, was that amendment said about a well-regulated militia being necessary, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. I'll have to get the Constitution in here again because sometimes my brain begins to let me down. Slaves were always in rebellion, just not always reported. And so a lot of times the plantation owners, the white folks, would have to get together and put down the slave uprising. And so as a result, there was a division between those, the landed and then the poor, I call them poor white trash, who had no land and had no slaves and were really in almost the same condition as the slaves. But when they began to see that they did not want the poor to get together with the slaves, so they separated the poor whites and made them to be overseers and slave catchers and slave monitors, and they gave them authority to arrest and to strike and even to kill black people, slaves. Then, of course, that brought about what we have historically, even down to the present hour. I always say Dr. King was not assassinated because of his speech. He was assassinated because he was getting the poor Indian and the poor whites from Appalachia and the poor whites in all of the rural and urban centers of America together and bringing them to Washington. And that was why he was assassinated, because they didn't want that many poor folks getting together. When the poor white boy began to see that he has a lot in common with the black man, black woman, whether we poor or not poor, then that is a recipe for revolution. And I feel that was one of the main reasons Dr. King was assassinated. I don't want to get off of my discussion about why we need reparation. And so the right to vote, the suffrage, staying on topic, Lord help me. It was guaranteed. Okay, the white folks could vote, let's put it that way. After Shay's rebellion and the coming together of the minds of the white aristocracy, they said these poor folks are still going to be poor folks, but we're going to give them something to do so that they will feel like they are part of us, and then we'll kick them down some revenue, give them some authority, give them some amenities, and give them the advantage so that at least they will know that they are better than those black people. And that philosophy has worked. It's not so much a divide and conquer among the black people that's working. It's a divide and conquer among white people that has worked so well down through the centuries. And so as America sunk deeper and deeper into the hellish pit of slavery, owning human beings, dehumanizing human beings, as they descended further into this Dantean inferno that was caused the conscience of normally good people to be seared, as it were, with a hot iron. All of what the modern psychologists call cognitive dissonance and all that stuff began, of course, to take center stage. It began to be the norm. So many people cognitive dissonance when you have two beliefs about the same thing. You believe that God is good, you believe God ain't good, something that's cognitive dissonance. You believe that all men are created equal, you believe that the slave is not a man, all that kind of stuff. Cognitive dissonance. You believe that you should do unto others, you would have them do unto you, but yet you dehumanize women. You objectify women, and you dehumanize blacks, and you sell to whites, but you don't sell to black, but yet you're both part of the same country. Cognitive dissonance, down to this very hour. The examples can really multiply as you begin to open your eyes and see just how blind and how myopic this entire nation has become. We have not come out of that abyss. We have not exited that hell. And as Dr. King says, he said he wondered if we black people were not integrating into a burning house. We may have first-class seats at the captain's table on the Titanic. Let me stick to what I'm talking about. Suffrage voting, as it relates to reparations, how that relates to gerrymandering. It follows that if the right to vote was denied to black people as it was, and it was enforced with violence, and when the black people historically did develop some communities. We don't have neighborhoods now. We used to have communities. We had our own stores, our own banks, our own dry cleaners, all of that. We had our own farms. You grew your own food. They sold it directly to the black markets. And the black market, Mr. Martin could go down to the black store and get buy some of Mr. Jackson greens, collard greens, and come back home, fix a good meal. You don't do that no more. But at that time, we actually had communities and theaters and all that kind of stuff, and clubs and juke joints and nightclubs in certain places. And the blacks were beginning to thrive and be affluent and be independent because the white folks didn't want you over there with them. So we had become self-sufficient among ourselves. And when the white folks saw that, then they rose up as a body and destroyed the community. Destroyed the community. You have to check the record on that. And it wasn't, and it continues to go on. They're much more refined about how they destroy your community now. But all you have now in neighborhood, you don't have communities because you're not self-sufficient within your community. Your money, as Dr. Claude Allison says, it only turns over if it turns over one time. You get your paycheck here, and you got to go to everybody else's place of business to transact your business. Well, your money didn't turn over in your neighborhood. And so these type of realities, economic realities, continue to proliferate. And I'm trying to get to a point here before man give me a signal to cut off. The suffrage is vitally important that we vote, because that's how you bring about social change. You vote the people in that you think will best benefit and help you. Historically, what we have failed to do as black people, especially in the modern era, is that we don't ask the politician, what are you going to do to help me to benefit my community, my people, my culture, in exchange for my vote. That must become our hue and cry and an ongoing question. I'm on KTYM radio. I own this radio station over here on West Boulevard, so to speak. For an example, what are you going to do to help me keep this radio station going and keep it moving forward? What are you going to do to help me keep Rev Nathaniel Martin on the air and KTYM Media on the air? We have to ask those type of questions before you vote for somebody. If they ain't going to do nothing for you, what you voting for them for? Hey, Linda, it's just like, as I said in our closing, if they ain't paying you, you don't need to be working for them. What you helping them for? And so likewise, when we see all these presidential candidates, we must remember the history of this United States of America. And the fact, I thank God that even at this later date, we finally began to hear the word reparations in the mouths of politicians, for the good and for the bad, for the pro and for the con. But now comes the battle. The battle is already joined. With partisan gerrymandering, you can, if there was a vote taken today to give, say, yay on reparations or nay on reparations, we'd lose the vote because the electoral districts have been gerrymandered in such a way that the conservative element, the Republican element, which originally, mind you, was a Dixiecrat element that historically had voted against anything that would benefit black people, they would win because they have reconfigured and transformed and redrawn and as a word that they use, contorted and made these districts, winding districts, to exclude the black voting power, to dilute the black voting power, but to increase and concentrate the white voting power under the theory of partisan. You're a Republican, you're a Democrat. The Democrats are in power, they block out the Republicans. The Republicans are in power, they block out the Democrats. As we said on last week about the Roberts Court, whoever heard of a Supreme Court that said we can't make a decision in this case? We can come to know. In other words, our whole purpose for being the Supreme Court is to render justice, is to render fairness, to say yay or nay. And it is unconscionable what we are being served by this John Roberts Court. It's an execration. I think he's worse than Roger Taney and the Taney Court. And you know, those were slaveholders. And with Clarence Thomas and all that crew up there, you might soon be back in slavery. 5 minutes. As I begin to wrap these scattered thoughts up, I want to again encourage you to hit that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button under my name, okay? Some of you have hit some of my older broadcasts. I got a bunch of them. I always try to find the latest one because I need the latest one to be going and going and going. I'm holding on. I'm trusting in God that this broadcast will serve its purpose and that it will grow. But I need the help of you, my brothers and my sisters, going forward. All my friends, Texas, Houston, Los Angeles, all across these 50 states. We need you to hit that thumbs up button. All my singing compadres, my preaching partners, in order that we may keep this a viable broadcast. And as I said, we're going to be bringing in some other spokespersons for Reparations. And we want to have a lively show going forward. And we trust that you will continue to download it. Right now you can download it for free. Who knows what the future holds. Right now I'm paying for it out of my pocket, but the day may come where I may be able to get some donations, GoFundMe or something like that to keep this thing growing and keep it going. We have to bring forth an educated and informed group of listeners that know the facts, know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It is a shame how black people have been exploited and defrauded in this country. We've always had to be twice as good to get half as much. And a friend of mine was discussing the fact that to work at Walmart in this country, one of the richest families on the face of the earth, or at least one of the richest families in the country, Walmart, the Walton family. And when you go to work at Walmart, they teach you how to get on the state welfare so you can survive, because Walmart ain't paying the place people hardly anything. Now they're trying, as a result of lawsuits, to creep up on $15 an hour. The problem is that now the cost of living is at $30 and $35 per hour. And but these are the facts. These are the realities. And so you need to be starting your own businesses. You got to find out something that you can do, that you like to do, that you can earn a living at. It may not be able to support you all the way, all the time at the beginning, but you got to start something. Remember, these folks want you to work for them, and they don't want to pay you. What? Take my advice. Don't work for them. God bless you. God keep you. Thank you, Doc.
I've had some good days, and I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days, and some sleepless nights. But when I look around and nothing spins over, all of my good days, outweigh my bad days. Yes, they do.
Outweigh my bad days.
I just say thank you, Lord.
Thank you.